want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Hey, hey, hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am Kirk M. Samuel.
And this guy over here is Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity, baby.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
We having real conversations for you.
You're talking about real conversations.
Ooh,
wait.
Uh-oh.
Before we even get into the real conversation,
Hey,
let's have a real announcement. Because I mean, somebody has some real news up in this joint.
Yeah, I just saved 15% on my car insurance.
Really?
Actually, I kind of might. Man.
You know, there are some financial and tax incentives for what's going on in your life.
To accountant about that. Have some accounting come on here. Man, I did a cruise last week, man, and thankful to Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, Harmony of the Seas. Did a fantastic cruise to St. Martin, San Juan, Perfect Day at Coco Cay, et cetera, et cetera. And in old San Juan, man, dude, I made the move.
Which move?
I made the move, man. Old cobblestone street called Fortaleza. It's a place where they got hanging art over the streets, and you're not even allowed to walk on the street.
Oh.
But I walked up to a police officer, and I said, "Officer."
How much you pay him?
I didn't pay him at all. I said, "Officer, I've been planning this moment for a year. Can me and my girlfriend just step right there for a second?" And I told him what the deal was. He said, "Hold on a second." He went back and talked to the El Jefe with the stripes, the sergeant, and he came back and said, "Yes, come on back here."
Man.
So we were behind the barricade on an old cobblestone street in old San Juan, Puerto Rico. Your old friend, your boy,
What happened?
Kirk M. Samuels, man, I got down on one knee. And I said, "Babe," I said, "you're my home." I said, "You're my peace." And I said, "I want to make you my home and my peace for the rest of my life." And I said, "Babe, will you marry me?"
Man, I need tissues.
Man,
What's he doing to me over here?
there's a whole story too, man. It was like, man, I had all this planned, and then man, the one thing I didn't plan on was a cop. How do I get past the police?
You handle that business.
But I handled it. I turned around and this family was walking by, and I leaned into the family and I said, "Hey, man, I'm about to do something big, about to propose. Will you take pictures?" And blah, blah, blah. And the dad, they had 3 little kids. The dad said, "Yeah, I'll do that." Grabbed the camera. He got back there, man. He was doing all kinds of pictures, man. The pictures were phenomenal. The weather was beautiful. Sun was hanging down, man. There was these hanging umbrellas all over the street, man. It was beautiful, man.
That is awesome. Our number one there, Janine, says, "Congratulations. So happy for you."
Nice.
She did. So I wanted to bring that up because not only is that major life event news that we got to let people know that we're not just joking around up here. We making things happen in our own life. But for the topic of today, hypergamy and wifeflation, I think because of what you just went through, we can have good examples of how wifeflation isn't ubiquitous and all over the board. I think it's more of a younger lady problem nowadays, at least from what I see. I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm older and most of my information comes off of the media and social media, stuff like that. So maybe I'm only seeing a small percentage, but just saying, because obviously you found yourself a good woman who may or may not have, I would say not, has dealt with or been a part of wifeflation.
No. And, so we lean into these topics. We ain't scared to grab the bull by the horns. We ain't scared to talk about some stuff and make it controversial and all that kind of things that are controversial. We don't necessarily make things controversial.
No, I put it in the post. You got to put your adult pants on.
You got to, man, because this is real deal stuff. So the original, it was like a video clip that you sent. And in the original video clip, it was not called wifeflation.
No, it was something else that was not as PC.
Yeah, I was like, you probably can't use that word, And
it was gardening to
FCC,
inflation.
Yeah. These FCC Airways, Crawford Broadcasting. Shout out Crawford Broadcasting, by the way. KLDC.
Thank you for letting us in the house again.
Yeah, thanks for letting us back. Every time we come back and the door code hasn't changed, it's a good day, man. But anyhow, so yeah, we decided to go from that other word, inflation to whiteflation.
Yeah.
And so, why don't you explain the concept? From and again, the idea came from a video that circulated on social media, and it was, maybe a little bit of red pillish, community, but either way, it was maybe.
Maybe. I mean,
But I
there
think
might
there's a
be-
reality to it.
I think there's definitely some reality to
Yes.
it, and that's why we combined it with hypergamy.
Yes.
They go hand in hand.
Yes.
But what the wifeflation or the other wordflation means is that our grandparents, like our grandfathers, had to do probably 25% of the work that we as men today have to do to get a woman, to have a wife, to get a family. And our grandmothers are probably 20 times better as partners and wives because of all they brought to the relationship, cooking, cleaning, home maker, and being supportive and peaceful and doing all those things. And so it's something that has come kind of, in a way, goes along with hypergamy, because in hypergamy, and if you look at the graph on the picture of the video, about 80% of women are going after 10% of the men. They want that top 10% of men. And they're not even looking at the bottom 80% really, or they're definitely not looking at the initial 10% of guys. So there's that middle 80% that are basically kind of invisible because they're all going after the top 10%. And then we have a lot of ladies now that aren't really trained to be traditional wife material, but they want all of these jump through the hoop kind of things from guys. He's got to be 6 foot tall. He's got to make 6 figures. He's got to have 6-pack abs. He's got to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not necessarily fulfilling those traditional roles like our grandmothers were. And that's where the wifeflation, or the wordflation term came from. And it goes right along with hypergamy, because you have majority of women, or is what it seems like majority, are looking for that top 10% of men.
Man, I'm so offended right now.
Be offended.
I can hear them out there. Boy, I can hear them. Ooh, they steaming, they hot. They hot, man. You talking about women. You mentioned women being trained and this and that, and you mentioned men having to work less for, better. About, man, I'm telling you that is, man, ooh, I might be mad at you myself, man.
Go ahead.
No, I'm not.
Let me have it.
I ain't mad at you, man.
Well,
And the funny thing is, as I've been thinking about this, after we were texting earlier, I kind of thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I think in the course of this conversation, I'm probably going to be offensive to women and men.
Yeah.
By the time we get done.
Oh no, it's going both ways. It's going both
I'm
ways.
not one of those. I hate that. Oh boy. Woo, man, the phrase that I hate the most is "it goes both ways."
Yep.
Well,
even in that video I sent you, one of the ladies was, "Oh, it goes both ways," and then it was basically like, not. It was just about how his guy's fault again. It's like, huh?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, at some point, I think it should be okay to talk about one side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the totality of everything, if everything we talked about was just from that same perspective, then I think that might be out of balance. But in the totality of everything, we talk about things from both perspectives. If you listen to one show, we might be talking about whatever, 2 men, another one might be talking about 4 men. Today might be 4 men, and then maybe I'll talk about 2 men.
It's gonna be 2 men as well, because it's one of those things, like we have questions all the time of like, how come men only want this, or how come men only treat me a certain way? And it's like, well, people treat you how you allow them to treat you. Where are your boundaries? Where are your I don't know where they were. Like what standards. I think it was standards.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. Anyway, but that's the same sort of thing. And so to the guys, if this is true, especially if you're a younger guy in your 20s and you're looking to start a family or start down that road, if this is true, this doesn't look good or doesn't feel very encouraging for you. If you are wanting to have a more traditional relationship, but what you're having to give up for that traditional relationship as compared to, say, 50 years ago now, and what you're getting back, I mean, the scales seem to have, I know that the feminist movement wanted to get to equality, but now it looks like they've kind of swung farther past that, and there's not a lot of equality on the men's side or equity or whatever you want to say.
And see, that's what I think the big difference is. I think the big difference is, the feminist movement that, maybe a generation or two ago or in now, I think that original feminist movement started off with equality, and I think it has morphed into sameness. And there is where things get off track, where I think we can be equal, but when we're the same, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Polarity is required for connection and required for even intimacy and relationships and all these other kind of things. And so I think when modern feminism steps in and says, okay, now that we're getting some sense of equality, or maybe we feel like equality is not going far enough, now we need sameness, but not necessarily sameness all the time. I want to be same and I want to be equal until it's time to pay the bill, or it's time for the ship to sink, or bad guy breaks in, or there's a bump in the night. All these other kind of things. I want to be treated like a woman. I want to be treated like a lady, but I want to act like a dude.
Yeah.
And that's that's where I think the crux of that deflation thing comes in. Is like, guys did not have to contend. We had to contend with historically, we had to contend with, elevating amongst guys,
right.
But we did not have to contend with elevating amongst masculine women as well as guys. I mean, you almost have to, you compete with masculine women just to begin to compete with guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the crux of that whole thing comes from, in terms of we didn't have to compete with masculinity from women, 3 generations ago. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what has changed, and I get it, and that's what I'm hearing the voices in my head. They're yelling, "Well, it's not the same. 50 years ago, women didn't have these rights, and women didn't have those rights, and we didn't have the pill, and we didn't have these different things." I get that. I know this is different, but this is what's going on, and what we see is a lot of ladies wanting a traditional man, not being that traditional woman, and so this is why it's like, put your big girl pants on and listen up, because we're here to help you. You want to know why you're struggling finding a guy, why you're struggling having a traditional relationship. Well, a lot of times the traditional relationship doesn't fit nowadays. But you have to know also, if you want a good man, what he sees. And that's why we're having these conversations. I know you're like, oh, you're just talking about one side, but no, this is what we want you to be educated of what men see.
Yeah.
And this is what we see. Our grandparents, or maybe even our fathers, didn't have to put up with the same amount of masculine, feminine women, the same amount of boss babe, the same amount of entitlement, the same amount of, what did you do for me lately? I mean, and just look at the statistics. 80% of marriages are filed, divorces are ended, or 80% of marriages are ended by ladies nowadays, not filed by men. The other 20% are filed by men. And then once you get past the first relationship or the first marriage, those statistics go up. What's really interesting is once a woman has a college degree and makes a really good living, those numbers go up to like 90%. So that's what we're saying is like, these are some of the things to be aware of. And men are looking at like, well, I would like to have a more traditional relationship. I don't know where to find a more traditional woman. And how do we make that work nowadays? So we're not sure what the answer is, but we know that it's not working right now. And so we got to bring up these topics and go, okay, this isn't working. It's not working for either side. How do we make this work? Where do we find the middle ground?
Would be a great work.
What's a great word right now?
A great work would be, let's work on a break.
You want to work on our break?
Yeah, let's work on a break, man.
All right, let's work on our break.
KLDC 1220 AM, Mad Men and Masculinity. We'll be right back. Oh, you got a stopwatch?
I got the stopwatch, but then I didn't. I started it late, so I'm glad you were paying attention to the.
Word, you got the stopwatch.
Yeah,
so you got the beat.
We got the battery.
Nice.
So yeah, we are live. We're still trying to figure out the best way to do the show in studio and live and everything else. So you can make comments and see, Janine knows, takes us back to Divine Feminine.
Oh, is that what she said?
That's what she said.
Oh, you gotta. Oh, yeah. Oh, girl.
I have to pop that on there.
For real.
Make it famous.
All right.
And we're back.
Mm-hmm.
Mad Men and Masculinity on KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. We're talking wifeflation.
Yeah.
If you don't know what that is, let's break it down for those of you who are late to the party. So the gist of it is that our grandfathers had to do about 25% or maybe even 5% of the work that we have to do now to get a woman who was more traditional and brought more to the table than what we have today. And we're bringing this up because we continually have ladies going, well, where are the good men and how can I have a good man, a good traditional man, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this is what those good traditional men are seeing. Hypergamy is 80% of you women are going after the top 10% of guys. don't even see the middle 80%. And these are statistics from eHarmony and Match and all this stuff like that. Like 80% of the men are invisible to you on dating apps. And then you want a man to be masculine and traditional, but you're being more of a masculine woman nowadays, being a boss babe, things like that. And so,
I've never met a woman who said she really loved to meet and settle down with a beta man. I've never met a woman who said, I mean, even women who are not necessarily boss babes. I've never met a woman, period, who said, man, if I can just find me a nice, good, soft, squishy, whiny beta man, a guy that just kind of follows along. I've never met that. I mean, if you are that woman, please report to Area 51. We'd like to study you.
Well, maybe she understands polarity. And she's
but
like, I can deal with it.
But I'm just saying, even the gruff, really hard masculine woman still says, I want a masculine man. And the reality is, a masculine man doesn't want to go out and fight the world all day,
right,
and then come home and fight at home. I don't want to go out into the world and fight the dragons all day to succeed and to achieve and to excel and to look out for bad guys and to, help the homeless guy. I don't want to go out and slay dragons and then come back to my castle and have to fight, in the throne room. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. Like, I want to come home, I want to take off my armor, and I don't want to have to worry about being stabbed anymore. And so the two don't go hand in hand, but so the concept that we're talking about, back to the video that's circulating on social media, the concept is that, guy could just go out and slay the dragons, come home, and we have a sense of peace. He comes home to femininity. He doesn't come home to masculinity in the woman, female figure in his life.
Yeah, I mean, and we even kind of touched on it a little bit when we did the Are You a Good Receiver episode, of talking about if your man doesn't express himself or doesn't trust you with his pains and hurts, then maybe he doesn't feel safe with you. And that's kind of, when we talk about peace, this is kind of breaking it down. This is what a man wants. He wants to be able to come home and release the day. Just like you do. When you get off work, ladies, you don't want to come home and bring that with you. You want to release that. You got to go home to the family, to the kids, to whatever. And so it's about being a partnership and helping each other and supporting each other through life and being his peace. And part of being his peace is being able to allow him to express himself. Now, we talk quite a bit about men, when you're going through things, first go through them with your guy friends. Talk to other men who get it, who aren't going to take it personally, because a lot of times we have seen in the past, I've had a lot of brothers who have the experience of their partner saying, tell me what's going on, open up to me. And then when he finally does and shows some weakness or some pain, at some core level, it shifts for her. Now she's less attracted to him. Now she's meaner to him and doesn't respect him quite as much because he's shown weakness. And so we say, guys, go deal with that with your guy friends. Make sure you deal with most of that, but you can still, in a stoic manner, kind of say, hey, this is what's going on, so I'm going to deal with that. But as part of this broadcast, what we're saying is a lot of guys out there now are having a hard time because they keep getting these messages that we want traditional good men, but then we're not getting traditional good women. And we don't know what the answer is right now, but I think each relationship now has to go through a period of figuring it out and having deep, dark conversations about your traumas and past and personal stuff, so that you can figure out what works for you in your personal relationship. Because I guarantee you there's no one pat answer for everybody.
Right. And as much as I hear women say they want that tradition, they want that leader in a man, and they want the provider and the priest and the protector and all those kinds of things, I also hear the same frustration of, well, I can't be, the softy, whatever, because I got to go to work too. And then I got to come home and some of that is, men happen to be biologically wired to compartmentalize better than women. So we can go and slay dragons and then come home with dirty hands and blood all over us from the slay dragons, and still we can put all that aside. So as we close the door, we have that ability to, if we can have some level of peace at home. And so women, unfortunately, the wires are just kind of it's more
Eddie.
Christmas lights, and it's like, one bulb affects all the bulbs. And so it's harder for you all. So we don't have all that solution. We're trying to explain to you from a male perspective, what that looks like. And so, and so that there has to be some kind of balance. And where this kind of surfaced for me, personally, my brother just got married last year and had a good amount of time to spend around him and his wife a couple months ago when my grandmother passed away, and we were all back in DC. And my brother put it in perspective, and I texted her this after we got home, after all of that how much I admired her. My brother lives in Atlanta, Georgia. He's a heterosexual male living in Atlanta, Georgia. College degree, very smart, well educated, no kids, never been married, no criminal record. You talk about unicorn. He's a unicorn of all unicorns in Atlanta, Georgia. If you know anything about Atlanta, Georgia, he's a unicorn of all unicorns, right? And he got married relatively late from what most people would consider. He's in his mid-late 40s. And, but again, never married, no kids, no criminal record, education, job, all that kind of stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And then as I watched them flow, and so part of me was like, man, what about her? Like, landed that in Atlanta. And then I saw, she was outright with like, she's like, no, I believe in gender roles, and she was supportive, and she was, is just kind of, he's the man. I let him be the man. And I and she's educated and has a great job and a great career and, all those other kind of things. And so, it's not like she's some wallflower. So just to be able to see that dynamic, and then now, to be totally honest, to experience that myself, it's like, man, I can be with somebody that is my piece, but at the same time is, very well educated, is a professional, is a career woman, makes more than me, and et cetera, and still come home and be the piece, like, and still believe in that, you got that role, I got this role, and it works well together. But at the same time, there is that dynamic of what we know as hypergamy and all that kind of stuff, which in theory, if it's one person dating up, then by default, it's somebody else dating down. So it's the 10% guy. It's the king going after the pauper, not the queen ever going after, whatever. The guy in the village. So that's kind of the dynamic, but I've seen that play out just in the last year in a couple of different relationships close to me.
Well, that's the thing. That's why we're always like, slow down, take your time, get to know each other for real, have these deep conversations, uncomfortable conversations, because then you'll know if you can communicate. Then you know if you can understand each other. You get through. If you can get through the tough conversations, then you can probably get through pretty much anything else. Because it doesn't get easier. You just get better equipped. You get better tools as you go through. So when we're talking about hypergamy and things like that, now one of the things that came up on one of the podcasts as well when we were talking about hypergamy is that the reason it's hard for a man to be traditional nowadays and find a traditional woman is because a lot of the taking on the masculine traits, especially a lot of the younger women are doing nowadays. Women hold the key to sex, men hold the key to relationships. But there's a lot of women running around now, especially younger ladies. Now, probably most of our audience this doesn't apply to, because most of our audience are middle years and like us. But a lot of the younger ladies are running around like dudes. And what they don't realize is that, yes, you can get bedded by, you can have sex with a 10 dude, probably 8, 9, or 10. But he's not looking at you as a relationship thing. He's looking at you as just a physical object at that point. But you get the idea in your head that, oh, well, if I can get that in bed, then I can get that in a relationship. And when we go back to the stay in your lane episode, if you want a relationship, you really want to, for your own comfort, your own peace, and for your own long-term happiness, you want to be closer to somebody at your level, somebody who's at your vibration that you can harmonize with. But a lot of young ladies now are thinking, well, I can get this dude to sleep with me. So now that means I qualify. I have a sexual marketplace value to get that in a relationship. And you just don't know how guys think. We are biologically wired to spread our seed. And so if you're going to allow it, most guys will sleep with about 80 to 85% of women, depending on how desperate they are. So sometimes having a little bit of reality check and going, oh, just because he'll sleep with me doesn't mean he wants to keep me.
Right.
And that will completely screw up your what's my lane and where do I stand? What's my value basically in relationships?
Hey, how about a lane? How about a brake lane? What do you think?
No, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet?
We're not there yet.
Okay. We're not there. Right on.
We're almost there.
Boom.
See, you're always trying to exit early.
I'm always trying to get that off.
That's why I don't ride with you no more.
Now I got somebody
Scare
to go
me to
on
death.
So,
Oh, I see how it is. See?
But the reality is, a king can make a queen, but a queen doesn't make a king.
Mm-mm.
So when Queen Elizabeth got married, her husband was always known as Prince Philip. But when King Charles becomes King Charles, Camilla became Queen Camilla. And people might look at that and go, man, how does that? That's just the way it is. Those are just kind of the, that might be British monarchy, but those are kind of the social, the social standards, if you will. That's the way it flows. That's the way it happens. And we just, it is what it is. Like I didn't make the rules, but it is what it is. And so, it really comes down to ladies, if you want whatever, then you got to be whatever that want, whoever it is you wants. Yeah. You can't chase your education and your career and all of that kind of stuff, and you still want an alpha man at the top of the heap. It just doesn't work that way, because that guy is not looking for a high achieving whatever. In most cases, we're not talking the exception, we're talking the rule.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think as part of this discussion, guys do not value the same things that women do normally in a partner. Women value success and income earning and stoicism and physical strength and things like that. But men do not value those same things. That's why they'll see a millionaire or a CEO hanging out with a girl from Starbucks or from the fast food joint. Like, we don't care about those things. So these are just a shift perspective to be aware of. And now I think it's probably a good time for a break because we got Knucklehead in the booth.
I was trying to cover. If you're watching the video, I got my hand up because in my video screen, I got Big Head Jamie in the background, Jamie Daniel from Corner Cafe in the background of my screen here. So
distracting.
Love that dude, but he's a knucklehead. Anyhow.
So we'll be right back, Mad Men of Masculinity on KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City.
Dude, I was totally off. I'm looking at the math, like, what kind of math was I doing? Like, I was a minute early, man.
That's all right. You're all good.
Kind of junkety junk was I doing?
I need to give you the
clock. I think Knucklehead threw me off back there. Again, back there.
Yes, the whole shit.
See, that's why we can't have nice things, man. That's why we can't have nice things.
What's up, man? Hey, congratulations, man. This is guy.
Thanks, brother. Somebody loves me, man. I don't care what you say.
It's a question mark on that.
I don't care what you say, man. I don't care what you say, man. Somebody loves me. She said she loved me, man.
When she said yes.
You know what's funny?
I saw her drop a Bud Light when she said yes. I was like, okay.
The funny thing is, she did say, like, I dropped something, and so we, probably about a dozen people asked, did she say yes? I'm like, man.
I don't think
why would I listen to this? She said no.
What y'all think I am, man?
Why you kiss somebody and thank you for not saying no? I love.
Man, I'm so glad you rejected me.
So when's the date? Though?
I don't know. We still talking. Maybe November.
But no, you can't go
this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Because you guys have been together for a while.
Oh, we've been together like 3.5 years.
Yeah. You said the old part, right?
Yeah, we too old to be messing around, dude.
You know what I mean? Right.
You need to hurry up. You need to hurry up.
Get on out of here. We got to show you. Get on out.
This is segment 3, right?
Mm-hmm. We'll dig into the dudes now. We'll give the dudes a hard time.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are back.
We're back.
Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City and on the interwebs everywhere. Talking about hypergamy, but more specifically talking about what we call lifeflation. We didn't use the word that was so it was.
We didn't think the gardening tool analogy would be good.
No,
for
we didn't. We didn't roll that way. But and so just the whole idea of ladies having maybe expectations, right, in terms of who they're looking for. All of them looking, not all of them. I'm speaking in generalities, but 80% of women, 90% of women going after 10% of men, all that kind of stuff, and the whole idea of our grandfathers maybe having to, actually work 20% less to get, a 20 times better woman just because there wasn't a competition masculinity in the household and the relationship and all those kinds of things. And so, hopefully, I hope that we poked some of the ladies out there in terms of some of your comfort zone and some of your sensibility, because we're not here to placate. We're not here to just stroke your ego and tell you, you go, girl, yes, queen. No, we're not here to do all that. No. We're here to take some truth. We're here dropping truth bombs. And sometimes it's emotional damage. But at the same time, we trying to bring the truth, man. And so, but what about dudes, man?
Well, let me tell you, because talking about Granddad, Granddad used to work hard, but he also took care of his family, his household, things like that. But there was a lot of things that he didn't have to deal with that we as men have to deal with today, which, what was the number one reason that most people got together? Proximity, location. It was the same town, same high school. That's, high school sweethearts, and they stayed together forever. Nowadays, we got social media and dating apps and, TikTok, attention spans and all these different things. So there's a lot more going on. But guys, we keep talking about priorities. We keep talking about standards. We keep talking about being a high value man. Well, a lot of that means saying no to what doesn't fit for you, what doesn't lift you up, what doesn't bring you peace. But a lot of guys, because of hypergamy, their noses are wide open. They haven't had a lady. 30% of men under the age of 30 are still virgins and still are not having sex in a year, like maybe once every other year or something like that. So there are a lot of guys out there who are just not doing well with the ladies. And so their noses are wide open. They're on the hunt, and they'll take what they can get. Guys, when you can take what you can get, when you will accept whatever, you get whatever.
I think also our grandfathers were less distracted than we are as men. I think our grandfathers didn't have to contend with things like broadband internet pornography for free. I think, our grandfathers were more focused. I think our grandfathers were raised to be harder workers from the time they were little boys, all these other kind of things. So our focus was different. We didn't focus on the the sparkly things, the little shiny objects. And like, we were talking about survival. We had to get hands dirty, and we had to do some work out in the field, out wherever when we was young, when they were young. And then it just carried on a different work ethic. And I think us as men, getting back to that type of work ethic or that type of focus and mentality is the solution to it all. I think when we chase the low-hanging fruit, we don't realize that the sweetest fruit are at the top of the tree. And we just settle for whatever it is that we get. And we settle from this mess with these modern bitter women that just give us cleavage and Brazilian butt lifts. And we just settle for that, man. And we just think that that's okay. And we need to up our game to become kings so that we can make queens out of women, as opposed to just settling for whatever kind of princess we can get. And we just settle to be, I'm just going to be the best prince I can be. That's good if you live in Minneapolis and you got tight leather pants and but other than that, we shouldn't have a goal to be just the best prince that we can be. We should be kingmakers. We should be making ourselves into kings, and we should be making our sons and our young men into kings, so that we raise the bar. And if nothing else, we become that top 10%, and we get to choose what of the 90% of women that we decide we want to make a queen.
Yeah. And when we talk about purpose, when we talk about all these things, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the millionaire, the top 10% guy, but you have to have a set of morals. You have to have a set of standards. You have to know who you are and not accept less than that. And knowing what lane you're in, knowing what frequency you're on, knowing what will match with you, and going for that. And for a lot of guys, it's like, we don't even know where to go. We don't even know where to look for, because it just seems like the deck is stacked against us. There's a war against healthy masculinity, and it's all talking about toxic masculinity. And that was one of the first episodes we ever did when we started this podcast. Like, there is no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's toxic men, there's toxic women, there's toxic people. But just to say, oh, toxic masculinity or toxic femininity, it's like saying, toxic black people, toxic white people. It's like lumping whole races and different things into this toxicity. No, there's just broken, traumatized people out there. And sometimes when it gets into dating, we have to go through some of those. That's why having standards. I know I've going through my trauma and going through my therapy and different things. I didn't always have the best picker. My picker was Brizzo. And so a lot of times I thought I had just found the one, and figured out it was trauma bonding, and I needed to run quickly. but that's sometimes how you learn. You got to learn through those experiences. So I'm not saying be stoic and isolated and just stay in your cave. You still got to get out there, but you got to, be willing to filter through and have higher standards so that you're not just getting whatever. Because when you get whatever, well, you're stuck with those results.
I actually talked with you about this not too long ago, and I don't know if this is a future topic or not, but I kind of realized I had some hesitation in the whole idea of, okay, I'm ready to get married. I'm ready. I've had a couple failed experiences, and I realized that what that hesitation was, and her and I've talked about it since, obviously, now that the secret's out, now that I'm not trying to hide rings and all that kind of stuff, but just the reality that hesitation was fear. And it was fear because I didn't trust myself. It was fear because I had failed multiple times in the past, and my picker was busted, broke, busted, and disgusted. And I was picking people who made me, or who I hoped could make me into a king, or make me into something that I wanted to be, as opposed to. And then when I recognized it was fear, the full circle of that was no. I have done the work over the years to get rid of my addiction to pornography. I've done the work over the years to work on myself, to forgive my father who died over a quarter century ago. I've done the work to forgive myself, et cetera, et cetera. I've done all this work, done therapy. I've become the man that I wanted to be. It might have taken 50 years to do that, but I've become the man that I'm happy with who I am. Generally, I'm always a work in progress. My what is always a work in progress, but my who is somebody that I can love and be happy with. And I think getting into that kind of space, it's like, man, I realize I'm the man that I've always wanted to be. And suddenly I find the woman that I've always wanted to be with. Like, man, this woman is my peace. I mean, she serves the badookie out of me, man. I mean, to the point of outright submission. But not in a dominant or not from a place of weakness, but a place of strength. Because I guarantee you that woman gets served like, I mean, she if she was here, she would tell you that, because she said it to me a whole bunch of times that, she's never had an experience like this before. And so I say all that to say that doing the work to become the king, that in your eyes anyway, that you want to be, whatever your version of king is, whatever your ceiling is, to maximize that, and then work from there is the solution to the whole thing. So I think, maybe the wifeflation or the, whatever the pergamy is, maybe that's good news to us, because maybe that'll prompt us to raise our game. And that's why we do what we do. That's why we talk about money. That's why we talk about ways to up level who we are, because we're the men. And when the tide comes in, all boats rise.
Yep. And on that kind of basic topic, one of the things that's been coming up for me, and is one of the things I think a lot of guys can relate to, is this toxic shame. A lot of us have this, I'm not good enough, I don't have the value, because of growing up in the toxic shame. And I mean, I grew up in a Southern military family. Shame was used as a parenting tool. Shame on you, this and that. And so a lot of us kind of grew up and then add in this war on masculinity. So a lot of us are dealing with toxic shame. And what kind of was a revelation for me was kind of look back and go, what do I really have to be ashamed about? I'm just a human being. I got faults, but I got good points too. I got all these different things. And sometimes, because when we're younger, we don't have the tools, we don't have the experience to go, oh, well, I don't really need to be ashamed about that. That's really nothing to be shamed for, because that's just being a human being. We have good traits, we have bad traits, we have faults, and sometimes we make mistakes, and that's okay. But if we don't take that time, we don't take the work to have that conversation with yourself and say, well, let me really look at what it is I'm ashamed of. Let me look at the things that I'm hiding, the things that I'm worried that, because for a lot of guys, we are so worried that when somebody actually gets close to us, especially if we isolate, especially if we're not in a relationship with that we want, having the intimacy, having that connection, and having that peace, it's because we have this innate fear. And I'll speak from my personal experience, for myself, that I was always afraid of relationships because I thought as soon as they really got to know me, they would hit the door running, because they'd be like, oh, well, then they would find out all the X, Y, and Z about me. But when you really break it down, and for most guys, 99% of us probably, if you really look at it, you go, oh, well, that's just being human. I may not be proud of all of these things, but none of us are perfect. Like Kirk said, we work in progress, but once you come to terms with these things that you may have been holding yourself back with because you're like, oh, well, I'm ashamed of that. There's really no reason to be ashamed of being a human being, but sometimes you have to step up and level up to be proud of the man you are. You have to accept all those parts of yourself. And that's that foundation of you. Being a human being, being a solid man is going, okay, I have these faults. I used to be ashamed of these things. I mean, Kirk and I can talk about, porn addiction and alcoholism and different things that we've dealt with and go, okay, I could be ashamed of that. But once I've worked on it, I'm not ashamed of it. It's just a part of my past. It's just a part of what made me who I am today. And speaking of making me who I am today, I think it's time for a break. We're just going to break this. Yeah, let's take a break. Okay. Mad Men of Masculinity on KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in my city. We'll be right back. I forgot the timer again.
Oh, I was wondering because I thought that was a little early.
It might have been, but I was like, I know we got to get up to about 53.
Yeah.
I was like counting back to 40.
Yeah. I was kind of doing that too, and I was like,
so we're sorry, y'all. Stick with us because the timing is off. I didn't let Mr. Timon do it, so it's all my bad.
We all good, man. If that's the worst problem we got.
My bad, Joe.
That's the worst problem we got. We do it all time. Oh, take it in.
How we bring this home? What's
Mad Men of Masculinity.
KLDC.
KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City.
In a world of whiteflation and hypergamy, two men stand on top of the mountain trying to point the way.
And I think, men, from a guy perspective, the solution is, man, get to the place where, and it's really not even about getting a woman. I think it's getting to the place where you are who you want to be and having your life bring you whatever it is you need at that moment. If the goal is a woman, you're always going to be chasing a brass ring because there's always another one, and the one you have is going to continue to change and you're going to get older and gonna whatever. So the goal ain't to chase women. The goal is to be the best king you can be and then, allow kingdoms to open up to you. And so, the whole inflation or pergamy, I think it all comes down to like, dudes, man, let's up our game and then deal with whatever else comes from there.
Yeah, the whole pergaflation. I mean, there's statistics out there and all these things and I think part of it might even be part of the kind of war on healthy masculinity because it paints a really dire picture for most guys when it comes to dating and relationships. Now, we do a lot of these episodes for the ladies, and this one's kind of going back and forth, but we say these things not to be mean, but just to let you know, ladies, this is what men are seeing, this is what they're being told. So a lot of the guys are like, why even bother? They're going, they got their passports, they're heading overseas, they're looking for a traditional woman elsewhere. So we all have to work on it. We all have to work on ourselves. We have to have our foundation, our boundaries, our requirements, our standards, and all these different things. But when it comes to gentlemen wanting to have a family, wanting to have a traditional relationship, you've got to go ahead and be more of a traditional man, which means having your foundation. And for most of us guys, especially coming from a nice guy syndrome background, coming from, maybe a single mother household, being raised by women, we didn't get the education to go, hey, it's not about somebody else making me a king. It's not about somebody else completing me or somebody else showing me who I'm supposed to be. It's about us finding out who we are and then going out and finding who matches with that. And that's the thing is that I think so many of us have been so kind of traumatized. We're just kind of grasping at straws. Like, oh, she gave me attention. She must be the one. And then we find out later on, oh, she was not even close to the one.
Yeah, I think women can smell desperation in a man. And they put out
use it. Oh my
God! They can use it against you. I mean, they
Manipulate.
play that like a violin, man. They just and I think us as men, when we get to the place where we aren't impressed by cleavage and BBLs, when we aren't impressed by all that surface level stuff, then we require the population that wants our attention to up their game. And you get choice. I think when you get to the place where you are who you want to be, and it's a progress, it's a process. When you get to that point, you have choices. I mean, you absolutely have choices. I mean, I love the woman I'm with. Been together 3+ years, and ironically, in the past several months or the past year, I've had multiple women make it clear that they were an option, and I had made it very clear that no, you are not. Because I'm just not impressed by all of that. Like I'm good. Like I'm and that was far from who I was my whole life, because I was looking for somebody to make me something, somebody to validate me. And I was looking for the world to validate me. I was looking for the applause, and I was looking for all that kind of stuff. And it's like, now, I'm kind of good, like where I'm at. Like, this is kind of all right. And so I think from a guy perspective, it's imperative for us to up our game. And when men are better, everybody is better. When men make more money and are more successful and more stable and more secure and more mentally balanced and spiritually driven and purpose led and all these other kind of things, the world is a better place, period. And so when we get to that place, we're doing pretty okay. And then it's up to the ladies to figure out how they respond off of that. Then it's up to them to figure out how do they become less masculine and more feminine. I'm not talking about pretty. I'm talking about more feminine. If they want the top 10% of men or even the top 20% of men, then they need to up their game. Because that top 10 or 20% of men, may not want your body type, may not want your, what you rocking or whatever it is. And you require that other population that is now on what would be your level, even if it is hypergamously down, then you require that, and that kind of stuff comes to you.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to staying in your lane, knowing your frequency, knowing your vibration, knowing whatever it is, that will get you much further along in whatever relationship you're trying to have. Because when you're on the similar keel and you understand each other, you maybe come from a similar background, you're going to have more in common. You're going to have more to talk about. You're going to have better communication. And to Kurt's point, I mean, if you're all chasing that same top 10%, that's 80-90% of the women chasing that top 10%. They get all the love. They get all the attention. And so stepping back a little bit, finding somebody on your level who will appreciate your attention, who will appreciate your time, who will appreciate you appreciating them, and will appreciate you back. There is so much to be said for finding somebody who is at your same level, that you have those things in common with, that you can communicate with, that you can create things with, because that will really give you more peace. Because I guarantee you, ladies, gentlemen, both, if you're chasing the top 10%, if you're chasing the 10, if you're chasing that dime, you're chasing whatever it is, and you're not that, you're not going to feel comfortable in that relationship. You're always going to feel like, well, they have options. They can leave. And so there's none of this staying with and being loyal to. It's about, well, I got to make sure I do everything I can to make sure they don't leave, which isn't up to you. If that person's going to leave, that person's going to leave. So finding somebody who matches you is a much better agenda than trying to find the top 10% of earners or physically fit person or whatever. Find somebody who's in your league, in your lane, and you will have a much better time, I guarantee you.
And I don't know why it is that way, but I think it's like, one observation is like, I think generally speaking, women tend to be attracted to men that probably don't want them.
I have noticed that, the a-hole.
Yeah. And I think that's a byproduct of hypergamy. It's like and by that though, it's like, no, I don't know of a woman that wants a man that needs her. I mean, I'm talking like, I need you to survive. I need you to pay my bills. I need you to whatever, to make me whatever. I mean, that's one more burden that she has that she doesn't want to have. And so when you can become a guy that doesn't need a woman, then in terms of a particular woman for what she has, then I think you're in a better position in general in that relationship. You're in a more stable position because you're providing her with a place. You're providing her with space. You're providing her with all those other kind of things that may not necessarily even be financial. And so, and at the same time, again, from a lady's perspective, who do you want, and are you the type of person that person wants? I mean, you can keep chasing. Maybe you have terrible success in dating because you keep going after guys that don't want anything to do with you. You think that there's something wrong with you. Maybe the only thing wrong with you is the guys that you're going after, that you're attracted, or you want to be attracted to.
Yeah, I mean, I see this a lot. We get a lot of kind of what do they call them? Alpha nexts or whatever, where a lot of ladies will go after those 10% guys, and of course they might smash, they might take you to bed, but they have no interest in anything beyond that. And you're doing yourself so much damage when you do that, because you're like, oh well, I slept with him, so that means I deserve that. And of course, those type of guys, for the most part, I mean, we're talking about 1% probably of guys who can just smash any girl that they want and get any girl in bed. They get all the attention. So, I mean, this is not a diamond in the rough. This guy is getting all the ladies. So what we're trying to find is somebody who thinks of us on both sides as the diamond in the rough, as something that's special in our, in our own eyes, in our own life, and who adds something to it. For guys, it's usually a woman who brings peace and doesn't bring in a lot of extra drama. Like he has to go out and provide and protect, but then he comes home to another fight. He doesn't want that. And we've talked about that as well. A lot of times, for a lot of reasons, guys are just kind of bowing out of marriage and relationships because they're like, well, I can't find a woman who wants to be peaceful. It's always about what's next and what's your ambition and what are you doing for me lately? And I'm sorry, you're not Janet Jackson. What have you done for me lately? It doesn't work for most guys.
No good guy is going to want a woman that's not his piece. No good guy. You might find a man, probably because of something that you have to offer, something that is probably temporary, in terms of looks or money or career or anything like that, something that you got to maintain, that you got to get needles in your face to whatever. I mean, don't get me started on all that kind of bad. Anyhow, but I mean, and so if you can't be his piece, then fine. Just keep trying to be pretty. If you can't be his piece, then keep trying to be pretty enough. But as opposed to working on that, I think more women these days would just rather go get needles in their face and try to work on being pretty. And those are things really that just come down to impressing their girlfriends, because that don't impress dudes at all.
No, we don't care. And we're talking about, we want to have real intimate relationships. You want to have real long-term relationships. It's about what's on the inside, ladies. And a real good man, if you have character, if you are peaceful on the inside, if you have those traits that he's looking for, he can look past any flaws. And as a matter of fact, it's your flaws that he's going to fall in love with. But it's about taking the time and slowing down and going deeper. And that's what we're seeing with this ADD TikTok, attention span of 30 seconds. Like, nobody is taking the time. And I see so many women that I think are amazing. They're awesome. That are out in the world. They're now single mothers because I don't know if they bought into the lie or they bought into whatever, or maybe they just dove into their first marriage and didn't have a good relationship with that guy. But there's a lot of ladies out there like, I can't find a guy because, as we talked about before, there's so many nuances. There's so many things that a guy, is looking at, especially a good man. And so you may be having a hard time finding a good man because he's like, well, that's a lot of extra work now. And it's like, well, yeah, a lot of what you want has results. It has consequences. But being focused on the outside isn't really going to get you that good man. Focus on the inside. And gentlemen, focus on your inside. Be the best man you can be. Love yourself first. And you will attract magnetically the person who matches with you.
The woman a couple of generations ago that was 20 times better wasn't so focused on her outside. She was focused on her inside. She was focused on what she had to offer in terms of at home when the doors are closed and when it's just y'all, when he got home. I mean, so the woman that was a couple of generations ago that fits into that inflation, that whiteflation kind of concept. She wasn't out just, I'm just going to stop by this med spa and I'm going to get this and that. And I'm going to go get this surgery and all this other kind of stuff. No, she was focused on what does my man need right now and how can I provide it?
Well, they were a team back in the day. Yeah, it may have been survival and whatnot, but they were a team. Like, she knew his job was to go make the money, slay the dragons, protect the house, and all that stuff. And she knew her job was to do the washing and the cooking and the sewing and all these different things because they were on the same team. They were working together. What we're seeing so much nowadays with all this media influence and everything else is it's all about what's in it for me. And that's why a lot of guys are just bowing out. They go, well, there's nothing in it for me, so I'm out. And I hate to end it on that note, but on that note, Mad Men and Masculinity.
Ouch.